All right, Rangers, settle in, because last night's clash with Tottenham at Rangers was anything but dull. We've got drama, controversy, and a touch of brilliance to unpack. Spurs came to Glasgow thinking they'd stroll away with the points, but instead they left with tails between their legs and a draw that's got everyone talking. We'll break down James Tavernier's inch-perfect assist that had Chris Boyd buzzing, the outrageous call that's being labelled a robbery, and how Hamza Igamane's left pundits scratching their heads. Oh, and let's not forget the angry rant from a former Spurs player who compared us to Norwich. Seriously, Norwich. And if that's not enough, we've got the gutting injury blow to John Souttar that could reshape the squad, and news of a £4 million gamble to keep a star permanently at Rangers. There's no way you're skipping this one. It's full of everything that makes following Rangers an absolute ride. Let's dive in. Oh, so Marvin Bartley reckons Spurs should leg it out of Scotland pronto after that Europa League clash, eh? Honestly, he's not wrong about one thing. Rangers deserved the win. That 1-1 draw felt more like daylight robbery than anything else, didn't it? Dejan Kulusevski's late equalizer was a right kick in the teeth after Hamza Igamane's cracking opener. And let's be real, we dominated the lot. Spurs looked more rattled than a Celtic fan in a Rangers pub. Now, here's where things get juicy. Philippe Clement's lot have been turning it on lately, haven't they? The Belgian was walking a tightrope at the start of the season, but now feels like he's starting to win a few doubters over. That said, the real litmus test is looming, facing the Celtic mob in the Scottish League Cup final. Last time out, they had us chasing shadows at their place with a 3-0 drubbing, but Tavernier and the rest of the boys have found a bit of form since, so maybe it's time for some proper payback. And let's not forget this, every decent run we've had seems to hit a brick wall when it comes to Old Firm Day. So here's a thought to get the comments rolling. Does this squad actually have the bottle to do it against Celtic when it really matters, or are we destined to keep flattering to deceive?
Finish this as an unbelievable ball from James Tavernier, just takes out the Tottenham defence.
Chris Boyd's been singing Tavernier's praises again, and fair play. What a cross that was against Spurs. Right on a sixpence for Hamza Igamane to slot it home, wasn't it? You'd have thought Pedro Porro might have done better, but let's be honest, Tav's delivery was so good it wouldn't have mattered if the lad had grown an extra leg. Just 80 seconds into the second half, and Rangers looked like they were onto something special. Shame it ended in another draw, but at least we've got a bit of momentum building. Now, Tav's not had the easiest of times this season. When the chips are down, the captain always takes the brunt of the frustration, doesn't he? But he's stepped up lately with 3 goal involvements in as many games. Not bad for a defender, eh? And more importantly, it's not just the stats, it's the leadership. You can see he's dragging the rest of the squad with him. If Clement's going to turn this season around, you can bet Tav will be right at the heart of it. Here's something to chew on, though. Is Tavernier's attacking brilliance sometimes a double-edged sword? Are we sacrificing too much at the back for his marauding runs forward? Or is that just the price we pay for having a captain who's one of the few consistently making a difference? Hamza Igamane's got them all scratching their heads, hasn't he? 3 games, 3 goals, and now he's got the TNT sports lot. Fumbling for words, seems like our Moroccan wonder boy's become quite the enigma. Rory Smith reckons he's one of the most intriguing players in the Europa League, and honestly, it's hard to argue with that. From working hard behind the scenes to cementing his spot up front, the lad's gone from a project to a proper weapon for Clement. It's a bit cheeky though, isn't it? Matt Smith giving him the old, "He doesn't look like a modern athlete" line. What's that supposed to mean? He's banging them in while the so-called modern athletes are still figuring out what to do with their XG stats. Igamane's got that old school vibe, grafting and making defenders uncomfortable, and honestly, we could do with more of that in the team. If Clement's plan was to shake things up, it's working because Dezers has been well and truly benched. But here's the real question for you. Is Igamane's unique style and work ethic a breath of fresh air for Rangers? Or are we just so desperate for a striker who delivers that we're overlooking his rough edges? Could he be the real deal long term, or is this just a purple patch? Jamie O'Hara, eh? The lad's always had a flair for the dramatic, hasn't he? Comparing Rangers to Norwich City. Behave yourself, Jamie. I'm not sure what game he was watching, but Rangers were far from pushovers in that 1-1 draw. Spurs weren't exactly setting the pitch on fire, were they? And let's not pretend Ibrox or Rangers, if we're keeping it correct, isn't a tough place to come in Europe. O'Hara's rant about Ange Postecoglou's team not living up to the hype is almost as entertaining as it is deluded. Spurs fans must be wondering if he's on a wind-up, slagging off their side for not battering us. But here's the thing, if Rangers were so poor, what does it say about Spurs that they couldn't get the job done? Calling us not even the best team in Scotland might get a chuckle from the Celtic lot. But let's not forget who's still alive and kicking in Europe. And Norwich City, let's get one thing straight, Jamie. Rangers have more European pedigree in one floodlight than Norwich has in its entire history. But here's a wee spicy one for the fans to chew on. Are these kinds of comments from pundits proof that Rangers are still underestimated? Or is O'Hara on to something about where we actually stand in European football? John Souttar going down injured feels like a punch to the gut, doesn't it? Just as things were starting to click under Clement, now we've potentially lost our best defender ahead of the League Cup final. Watching him pull up after a routine pass against Spurs was one of those moments you just know isn't going to end well. Neil McCann's right. It's not just a blow for that match. It could be a disaster for Sunday. Losing Souttar with Celtic on the horizon, and that's the last thing we needed. Leon Balogun came on and did his job, but let's be honest, him and Robin Proper haven't exactly had time to build any chemistry. Souttar's been the rock at the back, and ever-present in Clement's plans, and now we're facing the Celtic lot with a patchwork defense. Balogun's reliable enough, but without the form or consistency of Souttar, you've got to think Kyogo and co are already planning how to exploit that. Here's a fiery one to get the conversation going. If Souttar's out, does Clement take the gamble of sticking with Proper and Balogun? Or is it time to throw caution to the wind and try something completely different at the back? Is there even a solution that doesn't leave us wide open for Celtic's attack? Well, there we have it. Oscar Cortez is sticking around for good. Despite all the injury dramas, Rangers have decided to trigger the buy option, shelling out £4 million to bring the Colombian on permanently from RC Lens. Clearly, Clement and his staff reckon there's enough magic in those boots to justify the gamble. It's no small sum, especially for a player who's spent more time in the physio room than on the pitch this season. But if he can stay fit, maybe he'll be worth every penny. Big if, though, isn't it? Cortez is back in training, but don't expect him running down the wing in time for the League Cup final against Celtic. No point rushing him back just to see him hobble off again, is there? We've seen how that's gone before. The lad's got talent, no doubt about it, but managing him properly is going to be key. Clement's putting a lot of faith in him, and you've got to hope that faith pays off, because Rangers can't afford another passenger when it comes to chasing down the silverware. But here's a question for you. Was this move a bold statement of belief in Cortez's potential, or a reckless punt on a player whose body might not be up to the demands of Rangers? £4 million is no joke, especially when injuries are part of the package. Comment below what you think about the news. Don't forget to leave a like on the video to help me out. I post videos every day talking about our Rangers, so if you're not subscribed, you're missing out on the latest news. See you soon.